Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you help us to make right decisions for the people of Algonquin County. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Oh, please.
Johnston,
Here.
Drummond, here, Brady,
It's in here.
Small,
Here. That motion to approve minutes from April 5th. So moved. I'll second. Seconded. Any comments, questions, concerns? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Minutes approved. Start the day with public comment, limited to 3 minutes per person. Please identify yourself and count it. Yeah.
Nobody else? Patty Thomas, Harrisville Township. I'm here today because I understood that there was a possibility a resolution would be presented to the board for approval. I'm very concerned about the possibility of this board voting in favor of a resolution to make this a sanctuary county, I guess, for gun ownership, and possibly opposing state and federal law that might be passed. In any case, I'm concerned about the economic impact that it would have on our desperately in need of resources, tax-wise, businesses that might consider coming here thinking otherwise if they discover that we're really friendly and not using our local resources to enforce laws that have been passed by the state and federal government. With all of the issues that have been front page items across the nation, with the assassinations of people in our communities around the country, I hope that you will consider any possible resolution that would be in contradiction to state and federal law regarding gun ownership and the safety of guns in our communities. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our families, please choose the people over the gun laws. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Anybody else? Open in-house. How about online? Nothing online. Thanks. And another opportunity at the end. We'll start with presentations. Mr. Boas on the Camp Grayling expansion.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. And other esteemed public servants. Really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here today to talk to you about the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling. I'm hoping by now you've heard at least a little bit about it. About 2 weeks ago, I sent you too much information about the proposed expansion. And I didn't expect you to go through all of it before this meeting, but I sent it to you so that you would understand that I'm not here to offer you my opinion. I'm here to offer you factual information that's verifiable. That information I sent you with the sources of my information. So if you haven't had a chance to look it over yet, you can go back at your leisure and look it over. So the proposed expansion of Camp Grayling is the largest proposed state land lease in Michigan's history. And nobody in the state knows about that. It's not being mentioned in the major media outlets like the news and the free press. There have been fluff articles here and there, but basically they've just parroted what they've been told by Camp Grayling or the DNR. There's been not one investigative journalism story on the subject, and that's what I'm here to share with you today. So Camp Grayling, as it currently sits, is already overwhelmingly the largest National Guard training facility, not just in America, but the world. In the world. At 148,000 acres, which is 230 square miles. No other National Guard in any state comes remotely close to Camp Grayling. It's really important that you understand this. Myself and 4 other gentlemen, 10 months ago, started a group called Camp Grayling Expansion. We support our military. We support our police. We're not one of those wacko fringe groups that doesn't support our military. We absolutely support our military. We just oppose the unjustified proposed expansion of Camp Grayling. I said to you, Camp Grayling is overwhelmingly the largest National Guard in the world. So essentially each state has its own major training area. Most training areas are 10,000 acres or 20 or 30,000. If they get to be 50,000, 60,000 acres, that's a really large training area. Camp Grayling has 148,000 acres. What they're asking for is an additional 162,000 acres. They're asking to more than double in size. In terms of square miles, as I mentioned, 148,000 acres is 230 square miles. 162,000 is an additional 254 square miles. So we're talking about nearly 500 square miles. For myself, and it's really hard to visualize how much 310,000 acres is, but I can tell you this: if you took the footprint of all of the largest cities in Michigan, and I mean Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Bay City, Midland, all of them. That's how large, and you plop them down into the central part of the northern lower peninsula. That's how much land we're talking about right now. The question is, at the end of the day, the question is, because we all, at least I hope we do, want to provide our military, our troops, the best possible training available. So at the end of the day, the question is, does Camp Grayling need this additional land in order to better train our troops? I want to tell you something about myself personally. Back in 1985, a high school buddy that I grew up with, he was the one of us that should have went off to college, and he didn't, and he went into the Marines. And on May 6, 1985, my friend and 16 other Marines went down off the coast of Okinawa in a Sea Stallion. And so it's really important for me to clearly understand whether or not this additional land is better to better train our troops, because I would never just want to dishonor the memory of my friend. We know that that land is not needed. Here's how we know. Number one, U.S. Congressman Jack Bergman, who is a retired lieutenant general with the Marines, wrote a letter, took the time to actually write a letter to the Petoskey News and other northern Michigan outlets, and said, I base my career on providing the military and the troops with whatever they need, but this proposed expansion of Camp Grayling is unjustified. That's right out of his mouth. We also know this, by fate, I've been to probably 12 meetings on this topic and given over 60 presentations. By fate, in the third meeting that I was with, I happened to sit next to the former deputy commander of Camp Grayling. His name is Mike McNamara. He retired as a lieutenant colonel, and he's a combat veteran. In that meeting, he sat there politely, quietly. I didn't know him from God. I had no idea who he was. And they had two public comments in that meeting. At the last public comment meeting, in this meeting, the camp commander of Camp Grayling was given the spiel of how they needed all this land. In the public comment meeting, this person who I hadn't met yet stood up and said, everybody, he said, I want you to know I'm the former deputy commander of Camp Grayling. He said, not only did I retire from the National Guard, I retired from Camp Grayling. My father before me was a lieutenant at Camp Grayling. Everything you've been told in this meeting, you've been misled. Everything you've told. They're telling you that they need this land for low impact training and for what's called electronic and cyber warfare training. He said, that's absolutely not true. What they actually want is they need this land for, there's been a scheme going on and people don't even know about it. They meaning Camp Grayling, has been subleasing land that's been leased to them for free from the DNR to the private sector for the purpose of testing unproven weapons and technologies on our state land. The motive behind this proposed expansion is they want to take the existing practice of what I've just described, subleasing state land that they currently control in the 148,000 acres, and they want to expand that practice into a 484 square mile. Essentially what they want to do is privatize northern Michigan and turned it into a nationally marketed and utilized weapons testing area. And that information is detailed in D Business Magazine. I provided you a link to that article. It's shocking when you read about it. I had no idea that Camp Grayling was doing that. So what they're telling us is they need it for low impact maneuvers. The reality of it is they want to sublease our land and more of our land out to the private sector and turn northern, essentially privatize our state land and turn it into a nationally recognized weapons testing area. I want to give you an example. Another way we know that Camp Grayling doesn't need this additional land is that every National Guard training facility in America trains on a fraction of the amount of land currently available to Camp Grayling. And they all achieve the same superior level of combat preparedness. That demonstrates that it can be done on less acres than what Camp Grayling is telling us. And I want to give you an example. For 5 of the last 7 years, there's a National Guard in central Pennsylvania. It's called Fort Indiantown Gap. According to the Department of Defense, for 5 of the last 7 years, Fort Indiantown Gap has been the busiest, most productive National Guard training facility in America. In a typical year, Fort Indiantown Gap trains 113,000 soldiers on 18,000 acres. On 18,000 acres. In contrast, in sharp contrast, Camp Grayling on 148,000 acres only trains 10,000. So we know definitively that soldiers can receive the training that they need on vastly less land than what Camp Grayling already has available to them. In fact, any adjutant general of the National Guard in each of the states would be grateful and even thrilled to have as much land as Camp Grayling currently has. This notion of turning northern Michigan into a weapons testing area, it's quite scary, actually. They use cutesy words like electronic warfare training. Well, what electronic warfare training actually is electromagnetic warfare training. Electromagnetic warfare training has been studied for 5 decades by universities. It was even studied 50 years ago by the US Navy. It's electromagnetic training is the process of shooting radio waves, microwaves, various kinds of signals through the air for the purpose of disabling navigation systems and planes and vehicles on the ground, communication systems. Well, what it also does is it affects everything in your home. Anything electronic, it affects your TV, your computer, your cellular service, your Wi-Fi. And then it also affects things like heart monitors, defibrillators, insulin pumps, baby monitors. They tell us that they'll protect us from that, but yet they've demonstrated to us that they haven't been good neighbors when problems come up. And I'm talking now about the PFAS issue. You don't have to look any further than Wordsmith to know about PFAS. In fact, you guys probably know more about it than most people. That's going on in the Grayling area. And here's the problem. There's a gentleman, his name's Randall Roth. He's a district supervisor with the Department of Eagle, used to be the DEQ. He wrote back in December of 2022, he wrote an 11-page letter to the National Guard, admonishing the National Guard for just being terrible about what he said, in his own words, investigating, mediating, and remediating the PFAS contamination around Camp Grayling. We know Camp Grayling and all of the military training areas didn't cause PFAS on purpose. Of course, we know that. Things happen. But the reality of it is, all across America, probably 90% of all military bases and training areas, and certainly testing grounds, have been labeled as toxic wastelands or Superfund sites. It's a function of what happens with the military. Our position is, we're proud to make Camp Grayling the largest training area in America, but we want to mitigate the risk of expanding any future contamination issues, whatever they might be in the future. The problem with this electromagnetic warfare training, it's almost worse than guns in some way, because at least when somebody's shooting a gun around you, you can hear it, right? We're essentially going to be guinea pigs for the military and all of their private contractors coming in here testing these new kind of weapons. And we believe that it's just wrong to subject, there's tens of thousands of citizens that live full-time up here in northern Michigan, tens of thousands. They treat this like it's a wasteland, like they don't care about it. We don't want to see our citizens subjected to it. I'll give you a couple examples. The Michigan Health Department has put trout consumption guidelines on the Asabo and Manistee River all the way to the Mio Dam, which you're aware of. What I didn't know about until I started looking into this is that out on state land, and not everywhere, but in certain areas of state lands, the same health department has erected signs that say, "Don't consume the venison taken in this area." That's how serious this PFAS issue is. The most upsetting thing Randall Roth said in his letter to the military was, he actually said this. He said the military Camp Grayling appears to be downplaying the seriousness and the magnitude of the PFAS issue at Camp Grayling. So it's the position of citizens. If we can't trust Camp Grayling to clean up the mess that they've caused inadvertently, how can we trust them in the future to keep citizens safe? And so with that, I'm here with a gentleman named Neil Wallace. I'd like to point out, well, you want to talk about the maps?
I will. I'll be real brief. Thank you. My name is Neil Wallace. I'm from a group called the Anglers of the Asabo. I'm on the board of directors, and we are flatly opposed to this, and we've been working with local citizens and other conservation groups. The map you see behind me is a map of the communities that so far have formally adopted resolutions in opposition to this expansion. It's spread well beyond the footprint. The smaller squares you see are the local townships that are most directly affected by this. But as soon as we sort of accomplished that, we were getting contacts from folks saying, we understand that this affects us. We go to these areas to deer hunt or mushroom hunt or fish or snowmobile or whatever recreation it might be. There's a lot of state land in Crawford and Kalkaska that people come from all over the state to use. So even folks down in the thumb have said, come on down and talk to us about what you've got going on. Originally, my very first meeting over this was on May 31st last year, where I got to see Colonel Myers and his team present. They've been very vague about what their uses are, and that always spooks me when somebody's not forthcoming with information, because the unknown is always worse. But he said that day, I hope to have an announcement, an approval by September. And that's September of last year. And the reason he hasn't gotten his approval is because the people are being heard. And what Monty and a couple of other fellows and I have accomplished by putting this map together and getting the attention of the governor was for the governor to send a representative out to talk with us. We first started making phone calls, and then he actually came up to Grayling and we took him around and toured him, showed him a tour of the kinds of adverse economic impact this could have if people start coming. One of our township supervisors said, the guy's coming all the way up from Detroit or Lansing to an area he's hunted traditionally for years, and all of a sudden it's blocked off because the guard is using it. He's not going to come again. He's going to find someplace else to go and hunt. We don't know when this decision is going to be made. The end of February, the acting director, Shannon Lott, said at an appropriations subcommittee meeting in Lansing at the House of our Representatives, said, I hope to have an announcement in a week and a half. That was almost 2 months ago. But it is, I think, urgent from our standpoint that we get as many folks on board as possible. This map, which was just put together yesterday, is already obsolete because this morning Iosco County passed a formal resolution unanimously, which has been what we've run into in most every community we've been to. I also had the opportunity this morning with two other gentlemen to present to the Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Council. It was a very interesting experience. they have been now involved in consultations with the governor, the DNR and the Guard. And they're very much opposed to this because they understand as well as any of us, the potential for adverse effects on the environment. So I would urge you to join us to pass a resolution to oppose this thing with the hope that we can stop it and put the genie back in the box. They've got plenty of land. We know Monty referred to Mike McNamara, the retired deputy commander, and he has very good sources still within the camp. And there is 70,000 acres of what they already had that they're not using, that they could use for this very purpose. So there's something they're not telling us, and we don't know what it is, but it really is time to put a stop to it. So I'd appreciate anything you could do, and Monty and I could probably answer just about any question you might have.
Commissioners, I'd like to say, and to your citizens here, your residents, you know, if each of us in the room called the DNR director or the governor, that has a little impact. But the strength that we have in fighting this proposed expansion resides in elected local governments such as yourself. To date, we have 13 counties, and we've given presentations to a few others. In the next week, we anticipate getting decisions from them as well. So we have 13 counties that have opposed. More than 70 county commissioners have voted almost unanimously. In fact, out of 70, only 3 haven't. I spoke with Chairperson O'Farrell this morning, and he said, I know the guys up in Alcona County, and he said, tell them hello. And so Iosco County this morning voted unanimously to oppose. Yesterday, Midland County voted unanimously to oppose. Bay City, Bay County voted unanimously to oppose. That's all in the last 24 hours.
What 3 counties? 3 counties or 1 county, 3 people, perhaps voted no.
Just 3,
Oh,
just of all the county commissions
Yeah.
that we've been in front of.
What county?
No counties have voted
Every
no.
county,
Only
I
3.
know, but the 3 that
Oh,
go against. what county?
yes, Santa Lac Tuscola, one of their commissioners.
Tuscola, not San
Yeah,
Juan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Crawford County, although the commissioner voted not to oppose. She said personally she opposed it.
She said, but I haven't heard from any of my.
I haven't heard from
constituents.
any of my constituents, so I can't.
I've been an elected official, and I thought it was an odd, I was in the room, I thought it was an odd comment, like, okay, but I'm here to make decisions, you know, I don't necessarily need to hear from my constituents.
And there was one commissioner, I believe, up in Montmorency County that opposed, but out of 70 commissioners representing 13 counties, there've only been 3.
I know that they're to a point that, for instance, Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wyoming and all the others
Mhm.
are judged against each other.
Yes,
Question is the ladder used for evaluation equal in all counties, or all states, I'm sorry,
the latter in terms of,
is the standard?
yeah,
I mean, in other words,
Well,
they've lowered standards so
Let me-
badly.
yeah,
that
let me,
it's-
I'm gonna try to answer your question in a different way. What we have detected, is there's a very definite personal competition amongst camp commanders. And
Oh, I'm sure.
this as much to do with anything is about this particular camp commander expanding his camp.
it's about bragging, mine's bigger. you know.
Well, and
Okay,
Yeah.
it's about replacing what's on his shoulder with his.
but if, let's say Wisconsin,
Yes, ma'am,
the camp in Wisconsin
it's 60,000 acres.
is their standard of being good, whatever that may be, the same as the standards used.
Yeah, I mean,
Push-ups, so. you
yeah, I
know,
can understand, I understand your question now, you did a good job of asking it. So,
Bad job before.
the Department of Defense rates the military
Right,
on a
right.
concept called readiness.
Right, right.
That's the metric they rate them. And readiness is defined by a bunch of different things. Is there tanks up and running? Can they do the most push-ups? Is everybody healthy? Do they have a plan in effect for spouses that are gonna be left behind? Camp Grayling is not even in the top 1/3 And to answer your question, they're all measured on the same metric.
Okay, that's
Camp
right.
Railing's not even in the top 1/3. And what's criminal about it, not criminal about it, what's sad about it is they have the largest training area in America. So the question is, if you have the largest training area in America and you're not even in the top 1/3 on the metric of readiness, clearly there's other issues going on within Camp Grailing.
I'm sorry, you all have questions?
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily here. Um, I'm assuming, and I have a former child in the military, Air Force. And I'm assuming that it is averaged. And there's not this approximately, but not really the same number of people, guardsmen at each one of the camps. There's not.
There's not.
That's all right. Okay.
And
But they do average it out.
Now, this facility doesn't just train people from Michigan, which is what you'd expect, because they get to use this land for very, very little amounts of money. They have to sort of pay back to the DNR, what the DNR has to pay to the local governments, which is a stipend that's supposed to relate to the taxes, but the land itself doesn't have all that much value. Doesn't have that much value tax-wise, but it has obviously fantastic values for recreational purposes.
Okay, if nobody quoted you or us, who's the push behind this?
unfortunately, if we try to keep politics out of this, in our grassroots group that we started with 4 people, that's now up to 7,300. We have 2 rules: honor and respect our military and keep politics out of our conversation.
Sometimes you
Unfortunately,
can't escape it.
Unfortunately, as we get closer and closer to the end of this, to answer your question, the push is behind Governor Whitman. She's the commander in chief
Cheers.
of of Camp Grailing, and she's the one that's behind this ultimately. And what people don't understand is how the bureaucracy works. Governor Whitmer appoints the DNR director, who's supposed to make the decision on behalf of citizens. But yet, if the DNR director values her $180,000 a year job,
Exactly.
you can understand how difficult it's going to be for her to go after the governor. That's why we're here today. Our most powerful way of fighting this is to give DNR director ammunition to go back to the governor and say, Governor, with all due respect, I understand what you want, but we were not anticipating this kind of resistance. We have more than 62 local governments that are opposed to this. We have 319 elected officials that are opposed to this.
There's another important part about this non-party politics, and that is where it's not coming from. The push for this is not coming from the Pentagon.
Okay.
No,
This is
Good to know.
This is a bottom up push,
Yeah.
not a top down push.
yes. So,
I did read the material on vacation. I read the material, but. And I wasn't sure I knew as much as I thought. I think I knew more than I thought I really did. Just rare. But I would like to add this to our agenda. My concern is that if we let it linger, somebody's gonna make a decision not based on what we feel is our best interest.
In that regard, let me say just one other thing. Like I told you, we added Alcona. I'm sorry.
I asked.
Iosco this morning. I'm in Alcona and I was at the tribal thing. By the end of the day today, this map will be updated and it will be text right into the governor's office.
Yes.
That's the contact that we have in her office has requested that periodically we update him on what we're doing. And so
So-
we do.
We've received the support of every single township within the proposed expansion area and every county within the proposed expansion area. Now, what we've been doing is going out throughout North and Mid-Michigan, getting the support of counties. Our ultimate goal is from, a line going from like Sanilac, Tuscola, Bay, Midland counties and north. We want to have that whole map be read. I myself have a presentation lined up in Alpena County next week.
We said hello.
What's that?
Tell them we said
No,
hello.
I'll do that. But Presqu'ile County next, or Alpena County, then Presqu'ile County, then we're going over the tip of the mitt and going into, what's that? Sheboygan. Gladwin County is also on board with this. We just have to wait for their vote. Time is of the essence, and so we could really would really appreciate your support.
Despite the fact that I love the roar of that engine, I'm sorry, I always will. I still would like to see us move forward.
Any other question?
I didn't, did we have a sample?
Yes,
We have
they
a
provided a wonderful.
It's in my
It's in
packet?
your packet. Well, it was sent to me, not me, not in your packet.
What's that?
Did you bring one today?
We have one.
You have a resolution, a blank resolution covered in your packet. I want to tell you, there's a commissioner in Ogama County. She's also retired from military. She was very staunchly opposed to this proposed expansion. There's another gentleman up in Otsego County. His name's John Turnbull. He's a wounded combat veteran and an author. He's also staunchly opposed to this. He's been going around on our behalf.
Have you thought about going into the group that I'm thinking of is chapter 3 of the Michigan Eagles Forgotten Heritage? I'm sure they would be.
I don't know about that one. We presented, one of our team presented yesterday to the Michigan Townships Association's annual meeting. And they want to do an article for their magazine and post some things on the
Forgotten
web.
Eagles are not pleasant.
Okay. Say
Not
that one.
pleasant.
Baldwin
Not
Eagles?
pleasant. And
Okay.
I can't write this moment, but I can give you context if
Oh,
necessary.
we'll find.
I'm sure, I feel quite certain that they would go ahead and supply them with, within a permit as well. Affirmative, negative. Negative.
You know, we all live in northern Michigan because we love it out here. We view this as being a regional issue, a regional challenge. You know, if only 25 to 30% of your county occasionally goes down and uses the Manistee or the Sabo or whatever they do down there when they recreate, that's still 3 to 4.
One goes.
Yeah, well, it's still 3 to, yeah, if one goes, but if, a quarter of your county goes, that's 3,000 people, that use that land.
I'm okay if there truly is a need, and I'm okay with giving it up,
Me too.
but that's not what's being said. That's not what I've read.
There's quite literally nobody. There's not one local government agency, even John Demus, Michelle Hoytenga, Representative Ken Borton, Representative Cam Cabot, Representative John Roth, Neil Fisk, they're all on board with this. In fact, Ken Borton, on our behalf and on your behalf, all the citizens of Michigan submitted a resolution to the House of Representatives, and so did Michelle Hoytenga. She's submitted a resolution to the Senate for opposing the proposed expansion of Camp Island. And you can appreciate how dangerous that is for politicians to do that, because they don't want to be perceived as opposing the military, but their investigation has led them to arrive at the conclusion, as you said, that it's not necessary. So,
It's not going to do, from what I've read and what I'm aware of, it is not going to enhance the quality and value of the military.
no, ma'am, it's not. And if it was, we'd all be. in
Give
support.
it all to them.
Yeah, absolutely,
If it's going to truly enhance,
absolutely.
then I would support it, but I can't find it. I didn't find it in stuff percent. Some other reading I did, I didn't find it. And,
Any other questions? Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your time. We really
thank you,
appreciate it.
for work done on this.
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much.
Before we move on, I forgot to add the presentation, Gary Renwick. Resolution request for support of House Bill HB 4284. But that will be after Jeffrey Linderman and the Sea Lake Improvement Board presentation. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Jeff Linderman, riparian owner on Cedar Lake. I am also the president of the AICLA. However, today I am speaking on behalf of the citizens of the lake. I'm gonna hand out a couple things, you don't need to, won't get a test, but I'm gonna speak of it, and you can follow along tonight, tomorrow, or whenever you want. The reason I am here today is some questions that have become apparent to me about the Cedar Lake Improvement Board and the funding source and some other items I'll get into in a hot second. I'm not really looking for an answer today to the question. Did you receive the email, a copy of the email I wrote? Okay. Yes, there's a lot of questions on there. I'm not looking for a one-on-one conversation today. I'm just looking to bring up a couple items to your attention, and then hopefully in the near future, we can sit down again and possibly discuss it. Anyways, again, I'm Jeff Linderman. I live on Cedar Lake, and of course, Cedar Lake has a couple of groups, the AICLA, which is the nonprofit group that does things on the lake, and then there's the Cedar Lake Improvement Board, which is created by this board, along with Iosco County by statute. And I'm sure you guys know statute. I'm not gonna go into that to take up your time. But the questions I have is, when you created this board, who oversees the board? Does Alcona County or Iosco County take like fathership over the board, or does the board act independently? And do you get advised of what's going on that board? I know you have two representatives, Ms. Grumman's on there and Mr. Campbell's on there, as well as 5 others from Iosco in the rec area, Mr. Vaughn. Last year, I started searching for documentation on this board, financials, minutes, agendas, budgets. There was nothing to be found anywhere. It's not posted online. It's not on your website. It's not on Iosco's website. It's not on Greenbush's website. And Oscoda just started putting some documents on their site around 4 months ago. But it couldn't help me go back to 2010, 2015, 2020 to see what was going on, why it was created, how it's funded, and how the money's spent. So I submitted a FOIA to the Cedar Lake Improvement Board. Or actually, it was an email, it wasn't a FOIA, it was an email. Hey, I'm looking for these documents. Where are they? Can I find them somewhere? Well, the reply was, yes, I have them from when I became a chairman of the group. However, you should go back to the Iosco County and maybe search archives there and set up an appointment with me to review them. I was like, okay, I really want them electronically because I live here full time. The person, Mr. Vaughn, doesn't. So in the age of technology, you send me them. Send me what you have. No. So in the fall of 2022, I resent another email. Hey, I'm looking for these documents. Are they out there? Can I get them? Same answer. Well, you can make an appointment, come see me. But no, they're not out there. Well, that's why I'm here today is really the question, why was this CLIB created? I kind of know that answer. And does this board retain oversight of that board since you created it? And then financially, are you aware of the financial status of that group? Because I handed you a in 2020, they put together a 2020-1 Cedar Lake Management Weed Control Special Assessment District. I'm sure we know what those are. So they created this document and figured out, okay, I need $114,000 a year for all my projects. Therefore, the SAD for 10 years is 1.14 million. And it's listed out all the projects you see on his request for the SAD, which was approved. Of course, that was approved by the township, not the county. Last year, the CLIB purchased some property of $160,000 for a parcel of property. And the question I had, where did that money come from? If you created an SAD, for a certain amount of money. And you didn't spend it, that's fine. Was something shortcoming? How did you come up with extra money? And actually, before the purchase of the property, I don't know the exact, because I don't have the statements from CLIB, but it's close to $400,000 sitting surplus in their account. That's where the money came from to buy the property last year, northwest corner of the lake. And the last question I have for this board is, they purchase property. How can a board purchase property? Can they legally purchase property, real property? If they do, is it owned by the counties, townships, or a combination of thereof? And when I ask the question, since you bought the property, is there liability insurance on it? Because most people would carry insurance on property you own. No, we don't have to. So that caused another concern in mind is if this board was created under this board in Iosco County, are you liable now if you created that board for actions that board did or didn't do? So that's why I'm here today, to seek answers from this board in time. How you want to speak, if you care to speak directly to me, that's fine. If you want to have a meeting, subcommittee meeting, that's fine. If you don't want to answer me, I understand. But I'm trying to gather information on this board, minutes, budgets, anything they do financially, because I think financially, since it was created by both counties, you have some sort of liability here. I'm not an attorney, I don't know. But I think it's worth discussing, because the common goal is all of us want a better lake. Mr. Vaughn has done a great job is what he's done. The AICLA has done wonderful things. But financially, I think we need to be more transparent on where this money is going and how it's being spent. Because augmentation, if it does come to fruition with our lake, the statute says it comes from the counties. And the counties implement it, and then they pay for it through an SAD. But CLIB should not be spending any money on augmentation whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Linderman. Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your line. We just, normally I would send you something like this a lot longer. I just happened to find it bill online. And what appealed to me about it was it talks about House Bill 4284 wants to guarantee that the American Revolution founding document of the United States, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers. And the Federalist Papers, everybody says, well, that's a college thing. Federalist Papers were actually newspaper articles written so that farmers in upstate New York could understand what the Constitution was going to be about. My concern is that they keep talking about the new AP history standards, which want to forget all this stuff and really start at World War II, where we dropped the bomb on Japan, and just start moving forward of that. Quoted President Wilson saying, a nation that doesn't remember what it was yesterday does not know what it is today, nor what it is trying to do. And to me, that's been an important thing. I quoted from Noah Webster and Thomas Jefferson, who talked about understanding our history. Benjamin Franklin, I thought his comment was real good. But, from the book 1984, it talks about who controls the past, who controls the past controls the future, who controls the present controls the past. In other words, if we can make up anything we want about our old history, if we aren't careful enough to teach it to the oncoming students. And what I found really, really disturbing was in an Annenberg study that 33% of people or the population could actually describe 3 branches of government. you know, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. Even some of our elected officials that are in Washington tell you the three branches of government are the Congress, the Senate, and the presidency. I mean, it's sad. And it's not that difficult to understand. So what I'm asking this board to support is this resolution, because I'd like to see this bill passed, and I gotta start someplace. I mean, I have to deal, now sitting on the school board. The things I deal with is, you know, the difference between 1 year class and another year's class concerning the Declaration of Independence. One wants to admit, you know, say that, well, we were racist against one group, the other one says, well, you know, Jefferson did put a provision in his initial draft about outdoing slavery. The one book never mentioned the Civil Rights Act of 1873. The other book did, and it said segregated buses might have never rolled through the streets of Montgomery if the Civil Rights Act of 1875 had remained in force. It's like, there's all this conflict. At that level, I'm willing to fight the battle. The one that really bothered me, and I'm going to tell really the true story. I have a brother-in-law that if he doesn't take his meds every day, he can be pretty obnoxious in the morning. You could say, hi, how you doing, real kindly, and he'll basically tell you to get screwed a little more effectively. How did he become like that? Well, he did serve in the military. He served in the Navy. In the Navy, they practiced firing the cannons on the ship. One day they had a misfire. And three of his crew, you know, three of the guys he was loading the gunpowder with were dead. He came out with a brain damage. Okay. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is, in this I kind of find it moving to women. It talked about in the one book I'm reading, many women tried to help the Army. Martha Washington and other wives followed their husbands to army teams. The women cooked, did laundry, nursed the sick, and wounded soldiers. A few women even helped fight. Mary Hayes earned the name Molly Pitcher by carrying water to tired soldiers during a battle. Did anybody here know what the Molly Pitchers were? There were women that carried water to the battlefront. It wasn't because the soldiers were tired or dehydrated. It's if you don't clean out the cannon, you're putting you're putting explosive material into a hot can. To me, I found that, you know, as I said, that's a battle I'm willing to fight at a school board level. I'm asking that these standards stay in place and we are actually teaching these things. That's what's concerning me. I would appreciate you passing it so I can start getting other people to take notice of it, because to me, this is an important job. Thank you. I'm sorry, any questions?
Terry,
Yes.
use this bill, when is it come out of Congress yet, or is it still in Congress?
It's still in the House. I want to,
It's in the House.
yes,
Okay,
it's already been published. It's there. It's got a number.
okay, so you're waiting on a vote,
Yes,
and this was passed or came in front last year or this year?
this is this year.
This year.
Yes, this is a person I know. She is a new representative. She wrote it. I told her I would, you know, I just found it by mistake. You know, I was going through some of the stuff that's going on. And I saw this piece of legislation and I said, this is something that I think we do.
Thank you.
Okay. Now. Move on to unfinished business, juvenile probation officer special pay.
Good afternoon. Just a reminder from last meeting, we are asking on behalf of child court, Tammy Ranger's retiring at the end of May. And Social Security will not be able to pay her first Social Security until August if we cannot get her last pay before June 1st. The pay period ends on June 2nd, so court is asking for a special pay period sometime after the 26th, so that would be the 30th or the 31st. I've talked with the clerk's office. They've done this in the past. They say that they don't mind doing this. So I understand the treasurer's office said they have someone to transfer money if that's necessary for that time period. So it was tabled last time for this time period. I think we should check on that.
I haven't heard anything, negative about it, so, I'll make a motion to approve the special, whatever, I will over this,
Special payroll? Is that special
special
payroll?
payroll for purposes of situation with the juvenile probation officer special thing. That's a lot of big, long things, so you make that sound really good.
Okay. Get that into the personnel policy as well, look into that,
Well,
because you're setting a precedent
Yeah, we
for
so
retirement.
all issues, no issues at all through, yeah, I knew you had said that. Well, how would it become an issue? I don't know, Terry and I talked about that. How would it be if it was, how many days, weeks, months? Is there a different,
Let me get a quick second before we,
It comes up and bites you afterwards.
Well, we've had to
I'll
do it
second.
a couple of other
okay,
times.
second with Terry.
So-
Okay, carry on.
But it wasn't, I mean, as long as we have everything that we need in advance. And we know exactly what her special pay is gonna be, then it's not hard to do for one individual. If we're a matter, if it was a special pay due to a whole. Say all of EMS, or it's a whole different story, but this is something we know well in advance. We don't try to set a precedence for it. It has happened in the past for a couple of different offices, and we were able to do it, so. She's got everything lined up and ready, and she knows exactly what to expect, so.
How many times has this happened before?
Once for the treasurer's office and once for 911.
same situation,
You're fine.
retirement type thing, and it was getting.
No.
All different things.
Different, 3 different reasons for
Okay.
all of them.
Hey,
Any other questions? We're gonna roll call on this.
Brahman,
I heard you, I heard them. I'm really torn because it's setting a precedent. Yes,
Brady,
Yes.
Small,
Yes.
Johnston.
yes,
Thank you very much.
Moving on, new business. Yeah, trying to find the,
I would move that we approve the pre-authorized claim to open funds presented for payment between April 5th, 2023 and April 18th of 2023 for check numbers 150428 to 150. And e-checks number 2094 to 2101 for a grand total of 365, 189.83.
Carolyn, it is 560. 150568. I didn't fill in the last 3.
Say again,
150568.
515,
568.
568.
all right, whatever that number is.
Okay.
Let me see your thing. Let me have your paper. Hold on. I'll write it on there.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Yeah. Then with no discussion, roll call please.
Small,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes,
Brady,
Yes.
Brahman.
Yes,
Thank you. Next up, Hawes Township zoning amendments. This is the situation where if we don't respond in 30 days, it's automatically approved. If any of their representatives like to step forward, oh, that's me. And push this through. Yeah, I'll do it, sure. I'll make a motion to approve the solar ordinance amendment to the Hawes Township zoning. I'll second. Moved and seconded. I'm intimately familiar with all this same stuff because that's the township just went through this. And I'm trying to put together a special,
response to the make of that.
nothing yet. but I'm thinking Hawes would be glad to this point because they're gonna need the right paperwork to make all this stuff happen, so. Yeah, I will bring it up to them at their next meeting. So anyway, any other discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? Motion carried. Solar's becoming a big deal and you're gonna see a lot of it in the news. And a lot of it happening around here, their Consumers Energy and another firm is aggressively pursuing property owners in and around Winona County. Some pretty lucrative deals, but there's a lot of other people that don't like the possibility of what it's gonna do to the aesthetics of our countryside. Get ready, it's gonna be opinionated, it's gonna be fun. Moving on to the finance
Mr.
report.
Chairman,
Yes.
I think we added.
Oh, we did. I am very sorry.
Fairland,
Can't
that's all
hear the
right.
resolution.
And having brought that up, I would move adoption of resolution 23-10.
10.
Who supported? Any other discussion?
Yeah. I'd like to do a little more research into this. I think that's we're better enough. I don't feel comfortable moving on it now. I would like to do some more.
If it's any consolation, I kind of felt the same way when we got all the material, but then when I look and see that Crawford County and all the townships and everybody there, they live there
Right.
and they say no. So I feel like, you know, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would hope that other entities would respect what we wanted as a county and what our townships wanted, and they would support. I'm not gonna pretend to think I can dive into Camp Fairland and figure out, you know, what to do, and then if it's, I mean, I got a ton of questions, but I would have asked you a ton, but at the same time, I'm not there and I'm not living there. So I'm gonna trust those people who are there, I guess for me, that they're local government. And if this is, I mean, it's not just a 50-50. I mean, these guys are almost 100% of all the local governments don't want this there. So that's where I'm at.
I respect your side of it, but I want to hear the other side of it.
Well, but we've had time to do that, though.
Huh?
We've had time to do that, to reach out to others. Because we didn't just get to that today.
True, but we just got the presentation.
And I'm not hearing a big appetite to table this until the first meeting of May,
I would agree.
so. Yeah, that's what,
Don't we already have one on file?
yeah, motion and second. So. I think we'll go ahead with the vote, we'll do roll call.
Brady,
Yes.
Small,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes,
Brumman.
Yes.
Thank you. Then I'm gonna bring forward Gary's resolution for support of House Bill 4284.
Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion for the resolution to support House Bill 4284 as presented by Gary Blunt. Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Oh, I got a second. Move to second. I read this, I've had this for, since Thursday, I think it is. Anytime Gary hands me a resolution. We both laugh at each other because I go through and I circle everything that I. Will be the headline.
more like that.
We'll be on the headlines of the next newspaper. And in this particular resolution, in this House bill, I'm not seeing anything headline worthy to get us on the cover of any newspapers here. And it's a good, it's just about preserving our history and teaching it to our kids. I don't really see a problem with it. So that's where I stand. Any other comments? Okay.
I suspected. No, yeah, no comment.
That resolution, so we'll have the roll call, if nobody else has anything.
Johnston,
Yes.
Small,
Yes.
Brady,
Yes.
Brumman.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Like I said, I read through that. I didn't see any headline grabbing comments, so it's really good. Next up, finance report. I am the only person in finance here today. So I'm going to have a discussion along with Cheryl. Because we just wrapped up our audit. I got the report from the auditors and I only saw the one major flag. Wasn't flag, it was just the one comment where typically we have a whole page of issues of things that happen, you know,
The letter that they sent,
the letter that they sent.
that was just the standard language on what you have.
Okay. So, just real quickly, if you want to say for the treasury report, that's fine too.
I didn't know.
We haven't got anything back yet from the audit, have we?
No, we haven't, right.
Nothing.
I've not heard anything.
Neither have I, so I think everything went smoothly, right? As far as their need of information, they ability to provide it. Correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you guys did great work. I appreciate everything you do. Other than that, Dave's been out of town, so we haven't had a chance to have a meeting. And I plan to try to pull it together for not later this week, the first thing next week. So that's it for finance. Personnel?
We don't, we've done a few items, but we gotta talk to finance first.
Okay.
You guys gotta get
I got it from him.
in here,
Okay.
get back together.
Personnel. Done then, we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
I have the first quarter revenues for 2023. Light reading, one page. We have 24% into the year. And revenues are pretty standard for the beginning of the year. A lot of things, like I said, if we don't have, there are a few adjustments that still need to be made for this, for the beginning of this year, and we'll find that out with whatever the auditors come up with. I know there is some reconfiguration of some of the funds, the Cedar Lake structures. Last year they revamped some of the funds there, and so we'll be working on defining some of those funds and removing one of that, but that has nothing to do with this. This is just a kind of an overview of where we are. We've taken in about 8% of income in the first 3 months, so we have a lot to go. The output has been about 24%. So we're running on whatever fund balance is left, and we'll have those exact numbers after the auditors get done with their work. And that's really all I got. We ended up foreclosing on the properties. There's one that had a bankruptcy, so that one will probably be gone. We weren't aware of it. There was a name change, different things. We're kind of in that gray area of getting everything ready for the auction, where we've got to do some digging and information. Got an email from the land bank with regards to their, since the last meeting. They're opening their portals for applications. I sent an email to all the township supervisors in regards to that. I believe in between the last one, we had our last treasurer's meeting, kind of a wrap up. In a long couple of weeks. And so the equalization and the clerk's office are having a meeting. And the millage rates, which kind of coordinates and we're all working together. And then the township treasurers have a training coming up in May. The end of May, just before the holiday weekend, we get to come and spend a day learning how to prepare tax rolls. And then by then, they should be all educated and ready to go. That's all we've been really working on.
Okay,
Is there any questions?
looks like it. Thanks. On to the clerk's report.
Yeah, and like Cheryl said, they should be well educated by then. We're having a training. We've all met together. myself and Troy, and then we invited, the clerks, of course, and their assessors or their treasurers, whoever wants to come. Some townships are bringing all three. So that's tomorrow at 3:30 down here in the Commissioner's room. And again, it's for all the tax prep, so that the clerks are ready to have the information of the treasurers for what they need to prep their tax rolls. Yeah, and the audit I thought went really good. Cheryl was nice enough to come in last Friday all by herself for the 7th that we were closed, and work with the auditors again if they need. They've asked for so much ahead of time. They pretty much have everything, and being that so many companies and counties utilize BSNA, they're familiar with running and looking at a lot of the stuff themselves. John gives them just a limited amount of access, so they don't have to be in and out of our office constantly. So I thought that went pretty good. Also, the sheriff's contracts, you approved one with the city, but there was no signature on it. And then the other one with the school resource officer, that was to be approved by after Tom approved it. Did he review it?
I'll give it a-
Okay. That option side. But Adam, I'll just need to get your signature on that one that you guys approved for the city. And that's all I have.
Question on the election stuff. Any more word on that? We had a discussion at the township level about the 9-day of voting business, and is there what's going on with that? Nothing? No
All
idea?
I've heard so far is that Ottawa is probably gonna be like the pilot county,
Okay,
and they're ironically, because of the opioid litigation, they were our holdup county.
oh,
But they're supposed to, we're still waiting, like I said, the legislature still has to write it up. And once they do that, then the Bureau of Elections has got to figure out how to enforce it.
Okay.
So I don't know so far.
I just heard one of the townships told me that the county's gonna run all of it. Everybody's coming to the county building for 2 days. And I didn't hear that one.
I have heard that one.
Yeah. You have?
That's not
Okay.
off
I
base
didn't
yet.
know.
I don't know how this is gonna work. If the townships, if each township has to purchase their own separate tabulator and have someone available with a minimum of 3 people for 9 days straight of early voting, you quadrupled your costs.
Right.
And they're not gonna be able to afford. Townships are gonna go broke trying to hold an election. It's gonna have to come back to the county.
So can they do that? They just say, you know what, we're out of the election
No,
business?
they can't.
Well, that's what I
They
thought.
can't.
So. I mean, that's what I heard from this particular.
They
township.
are not
I
going
said,
to be able to afford. I don't know how they're gonna do it.
Yeah, okay, I'm just curious. I didn't know if that was realistic. It's not really realistic, but it's probably what they're gonna wanna do.
And I'm not gonna leave them holding the bag, because. I don't know. My budget might get really big for elections next year.
So what would we do? We Bill townships?
It's 9 days straight, so that's
Yeah.
weekends,
You'd have.
all
you could
these
have
clerks,
11
they
different-
have full-time jobs.
I mean, you could have, how many, we got 12 different entities. voting.
Well,
You have 12,
13.
they're talking, it's gotta be a separate tabulator from the tabulator it's used on election day, so there's $10,000 just for another tabulator.
so if they come into the clerk's office every day, you'd have people from 12 different voting entities. Well, that'd be fun.
12 different, not just 12 different ballot styles. One township has 4 different ballot styles.
Plus all of their own.
And then I gotta have and then I gotta have, there's gotta be a minimum of 3 of us. I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna work yet.
That's gonna be a mess.
Those rules are applicable to both township, county, and school, correct? Or are they
For
just
the
county-
9 days.
The 9 days?
Yeah, if it was like a local recall, not where it was a state or federal, then it would not be applicable, no.
No, but for regular, yeah.
Is it a state law that's making this mandate?
Well, it was proposal 2
That
that,
was,
Okay,
yeah, it was already voted on.
so under part of Headley that they can't do unfunded mandates?
I don't know the answer to that.
Huh?
Sure.
Come a little bit different when it's voted on.
You can't just say no, you know, when you have, I don't know how many people voted on it, I mean, for it, but.
Yeah, but I think the state has to appropriate money when they make a mandate on them to take some action, just
Possibly,
whatever that's worth. Huh?
hopefully, for the township's sakes, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
County Association might approach the legislature on that.
They just had a meeting, the Michigan Association of County Clerks on Monday. Thought it was on Tuesday, so I really wanted to attend and I completely missed it. So right now it's all just talk, though.
Sorry,
so.
I didn't mean to interfere.
Yeah.
Well, there's some chatter. Our townships, that's for sure.
At least they're
Okay.
talking about it. That's a good thing.
Yeah, they're talking, all right. County did that.
Some are ignoring.
Yeah,
That's what they're talking about.
sure.
Well, so everything gets hammered out, we don't, it's all hearsay and
Mhm.
figure out what we make. Communications, you have in packet, through your leisure, committee reports, Terry.
Attended the mental health meeting, MSCO meeting, and the grant for the corrections that we have going. I attended that meeting and we were able to get that passed, and so we have the grant coming for the area. That's it.
Grant for correction.
It's not necessarily, it has to do with a lot of the proper programs in the jails. There.
Is there anything new on the building? Can you choose to find right for
The building is done.
the new building? Well, the old.
The health,
Revamping of it.
I have to catch them next week, but from what I understand, it's
There's a lot more problems with this office.
the only, well, the last meeting that what I heard, and I think I passed that on, is they seem to have conquered the problem down in the basement.
Oh, that is so far.
They have
Water
water.
lock it. Shut the door and lock it.
That's one way to handle things, yes. Stick your head in the sand and ignore it, right? No. That's it.
Thanks, Terry. I don't have anything meaningful to report. Okay.
At Veterans again, that continues, so this week, I hope, SME will be up doing the ground radar penetration to make the check on the property in Lincoln. I had a veterans meeting yesterday and brought them up to speed on that. So there's a lot to do about nothing at this point, still a waiting game until that comes through. Don't have any other meeting, township stuff, but that's what we talked about, so.
Carolyn.
We continue to move forward with the opioid, new ideas, and move forward on getting the counseling. And then not the interventions, but the evaluations, getting those done. Reviewed invoices for 211, had a board meeting yesterday. Board meeting for 911. As you may know, Jeff Rackett has submitted his retirement, requested retirement, and it has been accepted by the 911 authority. And they are currently advertising for someone for a full-time position rather than part-time. We're in the process of trying to set up an MIDC meeting. I expect that will happen next week, although I'm not sure. I missed my township meetings. I missed a CLIB meeting last Friday. And I'm finding this is coming Tuesday.
Okay, thanks.
Terry and I were chatting, could you put us on whatever email on, I know personnel does have nothing to do with hiring the new director, but just keep us in the loop. On what's going on.
I'll let you know when I'm hungry.
Okay,
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
right, you know what I mean, just,
They have done the, this is the person we want kind of thing. I'll shoot you.
yeah, just a little, yeah, 'cause they-
That's right, orders. Okay, that's it for committee reports then. Moving on to our last section of public comment, 5 minutes per person, by yourself. Gary?
Yeah, Gary Benoit, Mitchell Township. I thank the board for passing what I asked you to do on that resolution.
I forgot to mention one thing, by the way, today is a significant day in history. This is the day that the first shots at Lexington was fired. And what's interesting to note too, that one of the people that was shot in the conflict was actually a black person, was part of the congregation that, Jonas Clark, pastor of the church, who told that church members they were not allowed to fire the first shot. God would only honor a war that was fought defensively. And I think it's an important thing to remember today. And again, thank you very much for the passing.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Anybody else? Anybody online? Okay, any additional commissioner comments and concerns? We'll adjourn this meeting till May 3rd, 1:30 p.m.
I had not heard